and I am going to be walking you through an overview of the performance measurement tool and the process around it for you today. So what are we going to be discussing today? Today, I want to get you acquainted with the basics of BJA performance measure reporting, the basic process. I'm going to provide you an overview of the structure and content of the questions you will answer in PMT, and give you some tips for handling common reporting challenges. Please keep in mind that there is a separate training covering PMT system navigation issues that was conducted in December 2019 and recorded for you to refer to later. This other training is directed towards grant programs in general using the performance measurement tool, not just this SBA program. It covers topics such as setting up your user account, generating reports, and an overview of how to navigate the PMT. Materials from this recorded webinar are available through the downloadable file feature of this WebEx session. Today's webinar is specific to this SBA Statewide Recidivism Reduction Program. This first section of the training will provide an overview of performance measures and the reporting process. So what exactly is the Performance Measurement Tool, or PMT? The Performance Measurement Tool is the online data collection tool for Office of Justice Program grant recipients. It is structured as an online questionnaire made up mostly of short answer questions, which grantees submit once a quarter throughout the life of their grant. Keep in mind, the Performance Measurement Tool, or PMT, is a separate system from the Grant Management System, or GMS, which you use to manage and report on many other aspects of your grant. Twice a year, we require you to generate a report out of the PMT system that you will upload into the GMS system. This allows the information you report into PMT to be accessible to all the grant program managers at BJA that you work with. At the bottom of the slide is a link to the PMT website, which you can explore once your login credentials are created. The important quarterly deadlines are highlighted in the lower left-hand corner, January 30th, April 30th, July 30th, and October 30th. The year is divided into 4 periods of activity. During the months after the end of the reporting period, the system will be open for you to submit your PMT data. After you submit your data, your answers will be locked, and you will need to contact the PMT help desk to help you unlock and edit reports as needed. However, the PMT is accessible year-round to review data. The second to left column shows the type of data you'll be reporting each reporting period. For every period, you'll report on performance measures which require you to answer short answer type questions. But for the reporting periods due January 30 and July 30, as well as at the end of your grant, we also ask you a few key open-ended narrative questions related to your progress towards your goals. Also for these periods, you will need to generate a report of your PMT data and upload it into GMS. Here are links to the Performance Measures Questionnaire, PDF documents which list every question you will encounter in the online PMT system. There are 2 links. The first one is to a main document. The second is for a supplemental section related to healthcare coverage that was developed later. FYI, the title on the main questionnaire refers to the SBA Adult Offender Reentry Demonstration Grant Program. It doesn't actually explicitly refer to this particular SBA program because a few different cohorts in various SBA programs have utilized this same questionnaire. Please remember, it is easier to track data outside PMT on an ongoing basis and then add it all together when it is time to report in the PMT. A large part of today's webinar is focused on the actual questions in PMT. But before diving into that, in a nutshell, performance measures aim to capture the following: input, which refer to program resources. Activities, which turn inputs into outputs, such as the number of people served. Outcomes are longer term or more bottom line, such as the number of participants who completed a set of requirements or obtained certain outcomes. And much longer outcomes include reduction in recidivism experienced by your program participants. Information in the PMT helps BJA understand progress, respond to Congress and the media, secure future funds, and provide accountability required by law. Now, let's get into the type of questions you will encounter in the performance measurement tool. As mentioned earlier, most of the performance measure questions in the PMT are short answer. These collect data used to track performance against goals and create a nationwide picture with quantifiable data. The second type are qualitative narrative questions, open-ended questions about your progress answered during the January and July reporting windows. These give you a chance to express in your own words how your experience has been conducting program activities. Both categories are equally important. Before we get started going through the questionnaire, I want to mention that we've developed a tool called SCA Tracks to help you keep track of data that is entered into PMT quarterly. You will see as we go throughout this training that there are a lot of questions asking you to provide total counts of participants, breakdowns of participant numbers by certain characteristics and services received, etc. The tool is an optional Excel tool, which helps you enter data about program participants, the services you provide to them, their mission and exit dates, etc. And it will produce summary tables with the aggregate counts that you need to provide for quarterly reporting. I won't be going through this tool today, but it is available to you through the downloadable file feature at the end of this WebEx section, along with a PowerPoint user manual. This is an outline of the questionnaire section. Many questions have to do with counting and describing participants you serve. If you do not focus on serving reentering individuals or are still in the planning phase, many questions will not be relevant. We will go through a high-level overview in the next slide. I won't go through every detail in the questionnaire, so please review the questionnaire. The General Award Information section helps track what stage your grant is in and affects what you have to answer later. If you say yes to, "Is this your last reporting period?" the system activates closeout questions that you only have to answer at the end of your grant. Or, "Is the grantee operational?" If you have not obligated, expended, or drowned funds, answer no to skip all questions, except for open-ended semi-annual narrative questions each January and July. The Program Structure and Treatment Services section covers the type of services your program offers to re-entering individuals. It determines if PMT activates questions about those certain service types. Question 8 asks what services you provide. Pre-release, meaning before release to the community, post-release, or both. Questions 9 through 14 ask whether your program provides certain types of treatment services, either pre or post-release, cognitive-based, mental health, substance abuse, employment, educational, and housing. One of the common challenges in PMT is for grantees that are operational but not serving reentering participants, either because their program is not concentrated on that specifically or they are in planning phase. Currently, there is some confusing wording in PMT. Question 1 asks if the grantee is operational, which is defined as having active participants, i.e. re-entering individuals, and using SDA funding. In fact, you can be operational as long as you have used SDA funding, even if you do not have active participants in a program focusing on re-entering individuals. either because your program is not concentrated on that or you are in planning phase. Unfortunately, if you tell PMT you are operational, it assumes you will report counts of participants. This is an outdated feature of a system that was built when it was assumed that SBA programs focused primarily on reentry services for individuals. In fact, some SBA programs may focus instead on systematic and organizational improvements. Follow these tips to get through the system, even if you have to answer zeros for questions asking for counts of participants. I won't go through these in detail now, since these steps will make more sense to you after we overview later questions. Moving on, program characteristics questions ask questions to get a basic description of your programming, such as your target population and expected number of participants. This section focuses on participants in programs which serve re-entering individuals, as opposed to participants for staff training, etc. This slide and the ones that follow have helpful based on questions we've encountered for grantees in the past. Though we won't go through all the details on these slides today, please use these slides as a reference when you do your pre-MT reporting. They have several helpful reporting tips that can save you time. Typically, SBA grantees determine a baseline picture of recidivism amongst their target population that the program's results can be compared against. The baseline recidivism section asks about the baseline recidivism rate and goals for reducing it. Calculating these can be tricky. You may need to consult TTA providers or research partners. The participant characteristics section helps us characterize the number of participants served. The numbers of people enrolled at any point in the reporting period indicates the size of your program during the period. The numbers of people newly admitted each period, when added across periods, give cumulative numbers served since the beginning of the program. We are interested in knowing the number of people served in each phase, pre-release and post-release. So, if an individual progresses from pre to post-release, over time, they will end up being counted under both. Finally, for new admitted pre-release participants, we ask for breakdowns related to their risk levels based on assessment results, how many received case plans, and demographics. The participant characteristics section includes several questions to help describe the risk assessments you use. The risk assessments help target participants with the characteristics most appropriate for program participation. The next section describes and records participants who have either completed or left the program before completing it. Note, your organization might still be engaged with and providing services to certain individuals, even if they have already successfully completed program requirements or have exited before completing them or unsuccessfully completed. Completion requirements vary by program and are thus defined by each program. These questions here prompt you to describe your requirements. And again, you might still be engaged with and providing services to certain individuals, even if they've completed or exited the SBA program. However, all programs should have specific requirements that, when met, give individuals a higher chance of success after reentry. When it comes to tallying participants completed or exited, keep in mind, each quarter you report just those who completed or exited that period, not cumulative numbers since the beginning of the program. Also, your program may have both pre- and post-release phases, with a cohesive set of requirements spanning both. Even so, when a participant goes from pre to post-release, count them as successfully completing the pre-release phase. You will count them again when they complete or exit in post-release. So, what exactly constitutes an unsuccessful exit or completion? We actually list out some possible reasons listed here and ask you to tally the number of participants you'd apply to, including other if needed. The table on this slide provides a summary of all the numbers that we asked for related to completions and exits. In addition to what we've already discussed, for post-release participants, we also asked for breakdowns related to outcomes obtained, specifically related to risk assessment levels, employment, and housing. We've talked about counting all the participants who started or completed your program. What about the services we provided to them? Depending on what service types were chosen in the early program structure and treatment services section, PMT will show questions related to the areas shown here. For each area, data requested is largely the same. Numbers of participants served directly by the program or grantee organization or referred elsewhere. For some service types, PMT asks about specific types of outcomes obtained, such as employment, education, or housing. One of the last sections asks for counts of participants who are enrolled or found eligible for health care or Medicaid. Not all grantees will track this data, but report it here if you do. And now we've reached the final section of short answer type questions. The court and criminal involvement section is only shown at the grant's last closeout period, but you need to track this data through the life of your program. It asks for the total number of post-release participants who have had a court and or criminal involvement event since the start of the SCA BJA funded program. There are some other questions related to describing the source of this data, which you can review in the questionnaire. Finally, the semi-annual narrative questions ask you to describe progress towards goals, accomplishments and challenges in the last 6 months, and your plans ahead for the next 6 months. Answers to narrative questions should be substantive, as they provide critical information to BJA program managers. This next section highlights common reporting challenges and FAQs for various sections. To introduce this section, we'd like to share how BJA identifies common challenges. Quarterly, we assess data accuracy and reach out to grantees with potential issues. Program grant managers conduct site visits where they may identify documentation to verify that you have a reasonable system for tracking data that goes into PMT. So I'm not going to necessarily read through every single question in this section, but please know that in this slide and in the ones that follow in this section, there are many FAQs that we've received over the years for various situations that grantees have encountered. So please use it as a reference when you actually do go into PMT reporting. And with that, I'm going to end my remarks here today with the slide here on the BJA PMT Help Desk and its contact information. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, except U.S. federal holidays. We strive to return everybody's email and phone call within 24 hours, so please don't hesitate to leave a voicemail or email, even after business hours. We'll leave the webinar open for about 5 to 10 minutes so you can download any handouts attached or use the Q&A box if you have any questions. If we can't respond to you with your questions live, we will respond via email ASAP. A recording of today's training and other user materials and resources will be posted online. On behalf of BJA and the PMT team, thank you for your time, dedication, and hard work. This concludes the presentation.